Good afternoon, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. I'll start by saying there's an issue with the, it's like Groundhog Day, isn't it? There's an issue with the recording system. So apparently, I don't know if this is good news or bad news. The good news is the videos are picking, so the visual is picking up us. No. Yeah, the other way around. It's picking up you, but not us. I know. But the audio is picking up everybody as far as we know. She says, caveating it very quickly. So, yeah, I think councillors, in fact, if the press might like to organise that, to do the drawing like they used to do in the High Court, that might be helpful. We'll see caricatures in due course. So just so you know that, apparently there was an issue at E&I this morning as well. So, new year, but some of the old problems remain. Welcome to this meeting of the Lifelong Learning Committee of 22nd of January 2020. I'm not expecting any fire alarms, so if the alarm does sound, it's leave the building by the nearest emergency exit. Please make sure that you use your microphones if you want to speak, and that you turn off your mobile or other communication devices to silent mode. We've got apologies today from Mrs. Pat Giles and Mrs. Carolyn Weston. I don't know if there's any other apologies or substitutions. Looks like everyone's here that should be. Can I ask if there's any declarations of interest in respect to the business on today's agenda? Mr. Charlton.
Yeah, Convener Andy Charlton, the Chair of the Pitlochry High School Parent Council, in relation to item 5, the Highland Perthshire Learning Partnership. As my capacity as Chair of that organisation, I'd like to declare an interest.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. We've had a request for a deputation from Eleanor Laurie and Lindsay Hurley from Bredalbin Academy Parent Council. Eleanor's not here yet, but we're expecting her to arrive. So they've requested a deputation to address the committee in respect of agenda item 5 on the Highland Perthshire Learning Partnership report. Can I have the committee's agreement to hear the deputation and to vary the order of business to hear this immediately before item 5? Great, thank you. Moving on to the minutes of previous meetings, can we agree the minute of the meeting of Lifelong Learning Committee of the 6th of November 2019? Thank you. And can we agree to note the minute of the meeting of the Joint Negotiating Committee for Teaching Staff of the 17th of September 2019? Can we note the minute of the meeting of the Children, Young People and Families Partnership of the 20th of September 2019? That's great. Thank you. One thing I meant to say, I got thrown by the audio-visual challenges of the Chamber. I meant to just comment that a number of us were at the opening of Bertha Park High School last week, which was a fine way to start off the 2020 year. And I just wanted to take the opportunity publicly. I know there was lots of thank yous given on the day, but particularly to thank everyone who made that day such a success. It was a really, really fantastic morning. The young people did themselves amazingly proud. The musical performances I thought were fantastic. And it's just taking the opportunity to thank all the staff at Bertha Park and at ECS for all the work they did. Those events don't just happen by themselves, and it was really slick and polished, but actually it was good fun, and I think everybody really enjoyed it. And Mrs. Giles in particular commented, because she hadn't been before, on how much she had enjoyed being a part of it and being invited along. So if you could make sure everyone gets our thanks, that would be great. So now that I see Eleanor's here, can we move on to paper 5, which is the Highland Perthshire Learning Partnership, and I'm going to ask the Vice Convener if he will take this paper.
Thank you, Convener. Members, we move on to item 5 in Highland Perthshire Learning Partnership, and I would like to invite in a moment Lindsay and or Eleanor to come forward and give their presentation to the committee. Can I remind members that will have the opportunity to put any relevant questions to Eleanor and Lindsay, but not to express any opinions on the subject until after that part of the procedure has been concluded. So could I now invite Lindsay and or Eleanor? I don't know if you're going to do it as a double act, are you? Okay, thank you. Come forward, address the committee. You have a maximum of 5 minutes, and you will be reminded when you've got about a minute to go if you need it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. We stand here before you as co-chairs of Breadalbane Academy Parent Council in Aberfeldy, and all through school for pupils aged 2 to 18, serving a wide catchment area in Highland, Perthshire. A well-performing school with exam results that year on year are above the national average, with numerous awards and winners of the National Rural Schools Award 2019. For over a year, our Parent Council have been deeply engaged with the Estates Review, and specifically the review of senior phase education in Highland, Perthshire, which considered the expansion of our feeder school, Pitlochry High School. Without dwelling on the past, everyone in this room is likely to be aware of the concerns our school community, which resulted from a poorly initiated process. Our Parent Council led a public campaign to protect a comprehensive curriculum which delivers great opportunity and choice for all pupils in Highland, Perthshire. We strove to be well informed and sought experienced advice. In October, we held a public meeting. Over 200 people filled Aberfeldy Town Hall, and with over 700 signatures given to our online campaign, we stood with pride and said, "Save our subjects." It was acknowledged at that meeting by the wider community and by those councillors who attended the meeting and the Minister of Education himself that all senior school pupils in Highland, Perthshire have access to a truly broad and diverse curriculum, and this should be protected. With the current focus of Hollywood and the media on a narrowing of subjects and a trend of reducing attainment, we are proud that our school stands above this. Too much time was spent during this review debating options that conclusive educational analysis would have seen a considerable reduction in the curriculum for pupils at both Breadalbane Academy and Pitlochry High School. Time and cost that should have been focused on supporting and enabling the growth of the curriculum. And so, we are pleased that the Highland Perthshire Learning Partnership has worked to do this very thing. If there is one lesson that our community asks to be learnt here today, it is that no school is placed in the position Breadalbane Academy were. We ask that when a school is given options under the remit of the Estates Review, that the impact upon all stakeholders, financial and educational viability of those options are considered before the options are proposed publicly. Lindsay.
Thank you. Looking forward, we've seen through the formation and regular meetings of the Highland Perthshire Learning Partnership that the past 3 months has been a truly collaborative process, and it's brought together all relevant stakeholders, and most importantly, those that we think know the school the best, the schools and pupils best, the head teachers. We'd like to comment briefly on the 3 principles where actions are focused, and this relates to the Education Subcommittee. Transition and collaboration. Both head teachers have worked to do joint analysis of the current transition by Pitlochry students moving into BA at S5. Some of those actions have already been implemented, and we hope with increased investment in transport from the council that transition can really be improved, and that such innovative ideas such as a welcome video for all new parents and pupils are financially supported with investment in technology. UHI. With the development of a UHI learning hub at Pitlochry High School, We see that pupils and both communities can benefit, and we look eagerly to see what UHI can contribute to expand our already diverse curriculum offered at Bredolman Academy and in Highland Perthshire. Digital. Our young people are living in a time where technology can support a global education. We request that continued support and energy is given to developing the digital learning strategy for both Bredolman Academy and Pitlochry High School. Currently, Bredolman is in the process of qualifying for the nationally recognised Digital Schools Award. Now is the time to establish where both schools are and where we can be in the future.
1 minute to go.
This report contains many great actions, and we're excited with your continued support to both schools. They'll all be realised in time. We ask today, with reference to actions 3 and 4, that you do support the development of transportation plans to enable enhanced transition and collaboration between our two partnering schools. This has been a constant demand from parents in the wider community. We ask that both head teachers be applauded for their continued partnership, vision, and the tireless hard work that they have leading our schools.
We ask that Eleanor Paul and all those involved in producing this detailed report are both heard and acknowledged for the great care and time given to establishing the viability of options put forward. We ask that the energy of all involved is focused on enhancements and collaboration. And finally, we acknowledge those parents who fight with so much energy to defend, support, and champion their children's school. We stand here proud of our school, proud of our community, proud of the talented educators and proud of the pupils. With your support, may both Bredolman Academy and Pitlochry High School continue to be a credit to Scottish education. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If you remain at the podium for a moment, please, to see if there are any questions. Any questions? No, none? You're getting off lightly? Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you. Okay, members, we'll move on to the actual report, and I would now invite the Executive Director to introduce the report.
Thank you, Vice Convener. The purpose of this report is to provide Lifelong Learning Committee with an update on the work of the service in relation to the development of the Highland Perthshire Learning Partnership. At this committee on the 4th of September 2019, a decision was made to request that I progress with the development of a detailed action plan for the Highland Perthshire Learning Partnership as part of the School Estate Transformation Programme. The plan was to be developed in partnership with Pitlochry and Bredolman High School leadership teams, Perth College UHI, young people, parents and carers, and the wider community as appropriate. In order to establish the key actions in the delivery of this action plan, a steering group was established which was chaired by an independent external education consultant. The steering group then oversaw the establishment of 2 subgroups, a learning group and a property group, who worked with key stakeholders to develop the action plan that is before committee today. The report details how the plan was developed and the high-level actions which have been agreed to date. Extensive engagement has taken place with the senior leadership teams of both schools, their communities and with various partners. Local elected members have been kept informed of progress, notes of meetings have been shared, and these are also available to all through the School Estate Transformation pages on the Perth Kinross Council website. The steering group has worked proactively and positively to develop this plan, and as the work progresses, will deliver on enhancing the learning experience of young people in Highland Perthshire. I'm pleased to note also that today a joint press release was able to be released that had joint statements of endorsement and support for the work from both the parent councils, from the senior leadership teams and from elected members. There are a range of officers here today who have been intrinsically involved in all stages of this work and would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? None? Okay. Councillor Purvis.
I was going to wait until some other people ask them, but if no one's coming forward, then I'll kick off. I just wanted to ask, thank you, Vice Convener, I just wanted to ask in relation to 4.3, and perhaps it's just the wording here that I was slightly confused by on page 31. about it is recognised the implementation of the delivery of S5 and S6 at Pitlochry High School is not possible. However, to ensure enhancement of the senior phase experience in Highland Perthshire and to achieve elements of S5 and S6 being delivered from Pitlochry High School, etc., further costs will be incurred. Now, I appreciate that's an outcome from the consideration of the resources, and can see in the action plan there is mention about delivery of college S5 and S6 course levels. I was just wondering whether, and this ties into a question about an update on the virtual campus as well, if that could be addressed, but is there an intention to go beyond just the college delivered courses in terms of delivery of S5 and S6 at Pitlochry High School? I just wasn't entirely sure from, and maybe it's just the wording, what was meant by that, so if someone could clarify it, please.
I'll start, Councillor Purvis, and then I'm sure colleagues will be able to provide further information if that's required. I think what we've got here today is the starting point of two distinct streams of work, one in relation to the learning aspects and curriculum offer, and the other in relation to property. So what we've not got here is, if you like, the final destination. But I think what's also really important to remember, and it's stated in 4.3, that whilst we're talking just now about the offer that we will be able to make in partnership with Perth College UHI, that wouldn't necessarily be the only thing that we need to consider now or in the future, bearing in mind there should never be any detriment to either Pitlochry or Breadalbin. So I think what we're talking about here is, yes, that establishment of UHI as part of the partnership, and that's really what's detailed here. But I see this as something that should and can grow and evolve and develop further. But that detail is not there now. So does that explain?
No, and I think that's the clarification that I was seeking, that this is a basis rather
Yes.
than necessarily it's just
A
going to be the college ones that will
yeah.
be delivered as good as that would be.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I had
Nope.
another one. Is that? Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you, Christina. It was just about the virtual campus. I mentioned that in my previous question, if we could have an update on where we are with that and how that's progressing, because presumably that would tie into some of those discussions that are being had by the partnership.
I think, again, in context of this paper, some of the developments that have been discussed, and I'll look to Sharon to perhaps give us some more information here, have been about the developing use of digital technology to support the Highland Perthshire Learning Partnership. So I think that's one component, and I think what you're referring to, and correct me if I'm wrong, is a broader development of a virtual learning environment across more schools.
Yes, but I suppose presumably that has an impact on what can be offered by the partnership.
Indeed, yeah. So we are looking at what can digital technology do to enhance the offer in the Highland Perthshire area, but also, as you know, there has been work that is still, I would have to say, at a very early stage, and is something that we wish to progress with at a greater pace. And absolutely then, as that develops, that would be available to any school, in fact, in Perth and Kinross, subject to having the right resources for that.
Okay, thank you. And Vice Convener, just very briefly, it's not directly related to the partnership per se, but is mentioned in the paper as a result of the motion that we passed 2 meetings ago. It's just about the scoping exercise for Kirkmichael Primary School, any catchment changes. Just wondering when we can expect that to come back to this committee.
I'll ask Carol Taylor, but I'm thinking it won't be the next committee, but probably the committee after that again. But Carol will be able to confirm.
It wouldn't be the next committee. We need to still go out and do some consultation. We plan to do that after Easter and before the summer holidays. That may bring us back in August. We'd hope to come back in August, but we'll keep you updated on it.
Thank you. Nobody else is indicating any further. Oh, sorry, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Vice Convener. It's just a question. Obviously, there will be an appetite to use as much of the buildings, etc., for perhaps other things. Is there any consideration to private companies that would come in and train people, not necessarily pupils, up? And would there be any scope for that happening in that area? Because I believe there is a demand for various training in industry and commerce, etc. Could that be built into this to make it to make the campus more viable?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. We are open to consider anything that would lend itself to, well, the Pitlochry High School building would lend itself to being able to use for, bearing in mind that we are talking about a school, and so there are a number of things that we need to be taking into account. But if we think about some of the other campuses and how they operate with other models and other partners in working there, then it's not something that we would wish to close down without full exploration of all the possible options.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Councillor McDade.
Thank you, Vice Convener, and I welcome the report. I was hoping that Catherine Ettry, the Associate Director of Perth College, Associate Principal, sorry, might be able to give us a bit more of a flavour of what subjects might be delivered by the college through the agreement in the future. And obviously we welcome their input in this, and I see that there is a talk of foundation apprentices, and there is other talks about video conferencing and other courses, so just for a flavour really of what might be delivered in the future.
Yeah, so initially,
Thank you.
As you rightly state, the first two options that we'll be offering from August 20 is the foundation apprenticeship in healthcare, social services and healthcare, and also new opportunities. The main reason for offering those particular two courses was that we identified that there was potential requirement from local employers, and that also these were areas that young people were interested in. We also discovered when we started our analysis of the young people that came from Highland Perthshire into college FE programmes was actually very low in comparison to other parts of Perthshire. So that was really the main reason behind looking at the new opportunities, that would ease the young people into a college environment, because in addition to studying locally, what we will do is we will give them the opportunity to come to Perth and have experience in different curriculum areas, so that they would be eased in a much more soft way into an introduction and preparing them for what their pathways in future might be. As part, to answer the most important part of your question, it's important to remember that as Perth College, University of the Highlands and Islands, that we are one college within a partnership of 13 colleges, and currently, as you probably know, we offer virtual learning environments and HNCs, HNDs and degrees, master's qualifications in a virtual environment, so it's something that we've got a lot of experience of. Currently, we've already started exploring the opportunities with some of our regional partners. That's a Scottish Government priority, and something that Education Scotland are also encouraging, looking around the regional areas of Scotland at what they're doing with the senior phase curriculum. And West Highland are actually leading the way in Scotland on this, and particularly from a regional point of view with rural communities. So we've already started our initial talks with them. So that would be in a blended format. So part of that would be virtual, and part of it would be in a face-to-face basis. So that would be a blend that would suit the curriculum and the young people that we would be working with.
Thank you. Councillor McDade, follow up?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Catherine, for that. I think that's really helpful. And I'm just, you mentioned about identifying skills gaps, etc. And I think that's really important. And I'm just wondering if partners in SDS and Scottish Enterprise are providing information, because I know when I go to the Convention of the Highlands and Islands, and on their side, the Highland HIE, etc., have done huge amounts of work around identifying skills gaps, and from speaking to businesses, they have identified a lot. So it would be good to know that that's been taken into account.
Thank you. Any further questions? Well, can you keep your comment till it's only questions at this point in time? Thank you. No more questions? Okay. I'll move on then to move the report. Convener, I'm delighted to welcome this report on the work of the Highland Perthshire Learning Partnership Steering Group. It's particularly welcoming to note the positive and proactive partnership working was at the heart of these developments and involved both head teachers and parent councils, as well as senior representatives of Perth College UHI, and also included pupil, parent and community input. I'm sure that members will welcome the learning subgroup's vision for a fresh, collaborative approach to education, aimed at improving the outcomes and opportunities for all learners in Highland Perthshire. Steering Group has agreed the preferred model for the Learning Action Plan and its 3 key commitments, which are about improving transition and collaboration, the development of the Perth College UHI hub within Pitlochry High School, and the use of digital learning and computer technology to enhance the learning experience. The associated actions include increased course choices and opportunities, collaborative learning, greater access to extracurricular activities, better transport provision, and the enhanced transition from Pitlochry High School to Billabong Academy. The establishment of the Perth College UHI hub is an exciting development which will open up significant opportunities for pupils, school leavers and potentially adult learners too. We've heard about the provision of foundation apprenticeships in social services and healthcare, and also about the new opportunities course for school leavers, and also the opportunity to explore learning pathways relevant to the local labour market, such as outdoor activities, healthcare, hospitality working on the land or in childcare. The property subgroup is working on the requirements of the school and the proposed College UHI hub, and on greater community use of the building. We've already spent over 1.1 million on the improvements to the fabric of the building, and work has been done to improve the school's digital Wi-Fi and audio capabilities. Members will, I'm sure, welcome the work which will help to further raise the position of Pitlochry High School as a valuable community asset. Convener, prior to moving this paper, I wish to acknowledge the sterling efforts of all members of the steering group and the subgroups in developing these action plans. I would also like to commend both head teachers and parent councils for their positivity and embracing the opportunity to work together for the betterment of all pupils in Highland Perthshire. Thanks are also due to the officers involved in supporting the steering group and for bringing this report back to the committee this afternoon in what I think we would all recognise was a very challenging timescale and environment. We recognise that this is a significant step forward for education in Highland Perthshire, but there is still much work to do, and I look forward to playing my part as Vice Convener of this committee and as an elected member of the Highland Ward in helping to deliver the various actions and desired outcomes which this report contains. Convener, I'm pleased to move adoption of this paper. Do I have a seconder?
Thank you, Councillor Duff. I'm delighted that the paper in front of us has been put together with full involvement of both of the school communities, and thank you both very much for that. I'd also like to personally thank Andy Charlton, Eleanor, Laurie and Lindsay Hurley by name, because I think you 3 in particular have very much led from the front within those school communities, and that's really important. I'd also like to thank Mr Devine of Bridalbin Academy and Mrs Liney of Pitlochry, who have demonstrated huge leadership in taking this forward. From chatting with officers, I'm aware that similar issues have been raised in the past, but you've actually taken it to the next step, and I think that's really significant, and we owe you a great thank you from all of us. Our partnership with Perth College UHI will be strengthened as a result of this work, and that also is significant, and our administration has already evidenced our commitment to making sure this works by investing £100,000 to just get the Highland Perthshire Learning Partnership launched. To Pitlochry High School and the wider community, I would reiterate our commitment to work with the school and the community to ensure that we develop all the opportunities that may be available to improve the school building and community facilities. And to Breadalbin, Eleanor and Lindsay, we noted your comments about transition and collaboration, about the UHI and about digital, and certainly offer a commitment that we will do everything we can to deliver what's required in those aspects. This is an exciting paper and one I'm proud to see brought before the committee today. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. Are there any comments? Audrey, would you like to come in at this point? Audrey McCall.
Yeah. I'm not a great one for paraphrasing because you've both covered it very well. It was simply to commend the work of the steering group. I think you did that very well on my behalf, and that was all I really wanted to say, because I do appreciate the time frame that the steering group had to work to. So having sat on lifelong learning for a long time and seen the papers that have come across my desk, there's a lot of work has gone into this, and it is consultative, collaborative, and it's an excellent piece of work that's been done on behalf of both Pitlochry and Breadalbin.
Thank you for that. I'm sure both schools representatives here today would very much welcome your comments as well. Are there any further comments? Councillor McDade, followed by Councillor Rebick.
Thank you, Vice Convener, and I would echo your comments that you made already. And I think it's important that we do thank those in the working group, because it was a huge amount of work to bring together in such a short time scale. And I think in my time on lifelong learning, indeed, to echo Ms Macaulay's comments, it's probably the fastest piece of work just about that I've seen in terms of come back. So that is to be commended, particularly to all those officers, etc., who led the paper around that. For me, this is quite an enjoyable moment in many respects. I wrote an article on the 8th of April 2013 suggesting that the two schools should work together with Perth College to enhance their offering, and I'm very pleased to see that it has come to fruition, perhaps slightly later than I was hoping for, but it has happened, and I think that's a very positive thing, and these things do take time, and I'm very reassured to hear the Executive Director talk about this as a first step, and I think it is absolutely, it's a first step to see how we can build on this and continue to develop. And I think the partnership with Perth College UHI has the real potential to expand offering at a variety of SCQF levels, and that can grow on and grow and mean that people can access education at a much more local point and hopefully stay in education for much longer than they might have otherwise. And I think Catherine Ettry's point was very valid in terms of a lot of people choose not to go to college because of the travel times involved. The college bus is at 7 in the morning. These sorts of things do put young people off, and when speaking to employers, they talk a lot about the skills gaps that they have, and there is actually we have, I think, the lowest unemployment rate in Perth and Kinross, but actually there is an important aspect around making sure that people are skilled for those jobs. So I think there's a real opportunity to continue to expand and grow that. And having made the transition from Pitlochry to Breadalbin in the fairly recent past, I'm pleased to hear that we are making improvements to the transition offering, and I think that's really important because it does also encourage people to stay on as well, not just make that transition but then actually stay on because they're not finding it as difficult. So I think there's a lot of positives in this paper. So yeah, I would just like to echo what has already been said and very much thank all those involved.
Thank you for these comments. Councillor Rebick.
Thank you, Vice Convener. Again, I would also like to echo the many thanks which are entirely appropriate to everybody involved in the steering group. I think it's also important to recognise that there has been a lot of angst, worry, frustration, and at times even anger during this process, not least from Breadalbin Parent Council and Pitlochry Parent Council, but also from officers involved and indeed elected members. I think everybody has taken this very seriously. However, we are in a better place now with Highland Perthshire Learning Partnership. We're not quite getting it right for every child in Highland Perthshire, but we're getting it better for more young people now, I believe. And the thanks to that do go to the officers involved in it, and they do go to the parent councils and school communities of Pitlochry and Breadalbin. It won't be a surprise to say that I don't quite agree with Breadalbin's parent council analysis of Scottish education. I believe that we do produce more numerate, more literate and well-rounded pupils than we ever did before. However, I wholeheartedly agree that the wide subject choice that they have at Breadalbin Academy is crucial to the health and well-being aspect of Curriculum for Excellence, and I fully take that point on board. It's been a long, hard road, but I think we're starting to get there, and I would like to commend this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rebick. Are there any further comments? No. If there are no further comments, can we agree the report? Thank you. I'll hand over to the convener.
Thank you very much, Vice Convener. Let anyone that needs to leave head away. The next paper, paper 6, is the School Estate Transformation Programme Strategic Sites North West, North Perth Options Appraisal paper, which outlines a number of options for accommodating primary pupils from the strategic sites based on a request from this committee back. I'm trying to remember now, was it September? Yeah. So it's the a paper that's been brought back following that meeting, which has increased certainly the amount of detail in and around the paper. And I'd like to thank Carol Taylor and her team for the work that they did on this, because again, it was another one that had to be turned around while they were not exactly short of work on other projects. So we very much appreciate the effort that went into getting that in front of us today. I'd like to invite the Executive Director to introduce the report.
Thank you, Convener. This report outlines a number of options for accommodating primary pupils from house building at the strategic sites to the north west and north of Perth, based on a request that came from this committee, indeed, in September 2019. The options are assessed based on criteria that has been used in previous options appraisals for the School Estates Transformation Programme, and these options have been ranked against each other based on that criteria. The report shows that if house building proceeds as anticipated, then it will not be possible to accommodate children without increasing the capacity of our school estate. The officer recommendation in this report concludes that building a new school at the site of Bertha Park High School is the best option for increasing capacity within the school estate in this area. This committee is therefore being asked to approve the proposal to build a new primary school at the site of Bertha Park High School, and to agree to officers beginning informal consultation on the development of a catchment for a new school.
Thank you very much. Can I ask if there's any questions on the report for officers? Councillor Rebick.
Thank you, Convener. I have two, if that's okay. The first one relates to page 63 of the report, paragraph 1.16, and I would like to ask, will the options appraisal, whilst appropriately considering suitable catchment areas for the new Bertha Park Primary, also consider suitable catchment areas which would secure a sustainable and long-term future for Rutherfield Primary?
Councillor Rebick, I can begin to answer that question, and if needs be, I'm sure Karen Robertson or Carol Taylor would be able to provide further information. The short answer is yes to your entire question, although I think you said sustainable and long-term future, and I would just want to provide some reassurance that we are not seeing that there is anything unsustainable about the future of the school.
Thank you for that, appreciate the answer, thank you. Reassuring answer.
Struggling with this new microphone stand. Yes, in terms of all options appraisals, I would consider all feasible options for the new school, and because Rutherfield is sited in the area which will be considered for the new catchment, it has to be considered, as Sheena has indicated, a sustainable Rutherfield and continued Rutherfield is one of the options that will be considered.
Thank you. If I can ask a second question, just very briefly, are we assuming the new primary school is going to be called Bertha Park Primary?
No, would be the short answer to that question. and the slight elaboration on that, Councillor Rebick, would be that we would need to undertake the options appraisal to understand what any proposed new catchment would be, and then based on an understanding of what any new catchment would be, then would be seeking a name. In the same way that we did when Bertha Park High School was established, that was part of that wider consultation process.
Thank you for that slightly less reassuring answer. Much appreciated.
those of us who remember whether it was Bertha Park, 2 separate words, or Bertha Park, 1 word, or, yeah. Councillor Anderson?
Thank you, Convener. On the same page, 63, 1.13, it states here that it's anticipated 2,582 houses will be built in 10 years. Is this totally in Bertha Park and the Amman Valley area, or is this for the whole of Perthshire? Or for the whole of Perth, sorry.
Peter Marshall.
This figure is related to the strategic sites in the north and northwest of Perth. So it doesn't include the whole of either the Perth housing market area or Perth and Kinross. So it's based around everything from Perth West through to Bertha Park.
Just to follow on from that, but that wouldn't be all these houses, it wouldn't be the catchment area of the new Bertha Park. It wouldn't be anticipated to be that.
It would include Amman Valley as well. So Bertha Park, Amman Valley and Perth West is the totality of the houses. So Bertha Park is included in that number.
Yeah, but the thing is that means 258 houses per annum being built, which I think is rather ambitious for that 2 areas.
If I could point out that the figures come from the Housing Land Audit 2019, which involves consultation with all of the developers involved in the sites, and it's based on their build programme. And what we have seen in the last year is an upturn in the number of housing starts within this area, higher than expected even within the most recent Housing Land Audit. And what we're also experiencing is the majority of house building within Perth and Kinross, more than 50% of it is within the Perth housing market area, and the majority within the Perth housing market area is in and around Perth. Now what we see is at the moment we have sites like Broxden and other sites developing. These opportunities are drying up, and we'll see a greater concentration in the main strategic sites in and around Perth. So we're relatively confident of these figures, but as I keep saying when reporting on these, it is dependent on the state of the national economy, amongst other things, in terms of keeping up these build rates. But it's the best estimate we have at the moment.
Thank you.
The Executive Director just wants to clarify a point.
Councillor Anderson, you said, if I picked you up correctly, that you thought there would be 2,582 houses built per annum for the next 10 years, but it's in total over that period of time. Yes.
In my sums,
yeah.
It's 258 per annum. 258 houses is a lot of houses.
Yeah, yeah.
Any further questions? Councillor Simpson.
Thank you very much, Convener. I just wanted a wee bit of clarification on page 62, 1.6, paragraph 1, where it states, which I assume is an aspiration, that schools, where possible, should be at 60% of capacity and ideally at 80%. Can someone give me an idea of what we might do if there is a school that falls below these? I know things you can't do. I mean, head teachers are not allowed to go out sort of, soliciting more children for their school or anything. But what steps could you just have to accept these figures, or is there some actions we can take to ensure that our estate is as full as possible? Or what can or can we not do about that?
Councillor Simpson, the 1.61 is one of the key criteria that we have used, as you'll appreciate, in terms of identifying, looking at the school estate review, and that part of that has been trying to understand what can we do, a range of different approaches when schools are operating below what we would consider to be an efficient capacity. You're asking what can individual schools do to basically sustain or indeed boost the pupil role, is that correct?
or us as an authority, if there are any steps we can take.
Yeah. And there's a range of things that schools currently do and have done for some time. What we do know is, though, that through population changes and demographic shifts, there'll be many things that a school might try and do, but the reality is there'll just not be enough young people actually living in an area that would provide what we would consider to be a sustainable school role. But a number of schools will advertise is the incorrect word, but demonstrate through a range of means, whether that's open sessions or at the point of just now as youngsters are registering for nursery or parents are making placing requests, provide information sessions in the community that people can attend. We know that where there has been potential for new builds coming on, we know that head teachers have made the contractors aware of the school in the area, and for that to be mentioned, as it often is when there's a new build development. So that there are actually a range of measures. One of the key things is about providing high quality learning and teaching, and the school itself may then become a very attractive proposition for people.
That answer your question. Any further questions? Councillor Purveson, Councillor McDade.
Thank you, Convener. And I'd first like to thank officers for their work on this. As we said at the last committee, for spending millions of pounds, it is important that we have full information in order to make that decision. So it's very welcome, the additional work that's been done on this. My specific question is in relation to the house numbers as well, and the pupil numbers that generates. 1.13 has been alluded to, says that over the next 10 years it's estimated to generate approximately 700 primary school pupils. Now presumably they won't all be at once, and they will be of a variety of ages, and will not all be at school at the same time. I'm just wondering, in terms of that additional number of pupils that is going to be generated, what size of school, capacity of school are we looking at building? And then as a supplementary to that, is the 14.35 million that's in the capital budget, is that sufficient, is it insufficient, or is it just about right in terms of building that school?
Councillor Purvis, I'll start off answering that, and Carl and Peter will probably be able to give you some more of the detail. In relation to the 14.35 million that's in the table 9, which is already in the budget, that's currently allocated, and that is based on that which we know from experience in the past. So that would be a double stream and a nursery, but that's indicative. So that is not the absolute figure, but that's an indication of what we know it has cost to build double stream and nursery school. So that takes care of that point in relation.
In terms of pupil numbers, how many is that? I suppose I could work out, but just...
Okay, so if you average 25 in the 2 primary 1s, 30 in the primary 2s and 3s, and up to 33 in the P4s to 7s. I'll let you do that, some.
Quick mental maths.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did Sheena say that it's 434 children? Did we work that out? Sorry, it just got lost. So it's 434 children.
It's on the big side, big scale, like a Kinross type.
A double stream school is 434. Yeah. Kinross is 566, so it's bigger than a double stream school. In terms of your question about the size of the school, we'll determine that as part of the options appraisal, because obviously the catchment will determine the size of the school. I don't have an expectation at this point that it will be bigger than a double stream school. That's what our thoughts are at the moment.
And if I could ask a supplementary to that, and it follows on from the reassurances that were given by the Executive Director in terms of that we're not saying that Rutherford is not sustainable going forward. Given that that's quite a big school already, I know that we still have to go through the formal process for Rutherford. I'm not wanting to prejudge the outcome of that, but presumably if you start adding any other catchment areas or pupils to that, that's getting a very, very large school, if you see what I mean, if we were to close Rutherford, for example.
I suppose what we're asking today, though, is about permission to go out to look at what all the different options would be and then bring those back. And that kind of discussion and the questions you're asking there would be for discussion and debate further down the line. But in essence, if there's 700 youngsters projected over that 10-year period, then you're absolutely right, they would not be accommodated in one school. So it's about looking at the realignment of the catchments in the area to understand, and that might pick up on the point that Councillor Simpson was making, where any other school might not be operating at full capacity. Would catchment realignment assist with that? Or indeed, at some point further down the line, might there be a need for another additional part of the school estate?
Thank you. And can I ask a very cheeky additional question, which is referred to in the report as per my tenuous question the last time? I'm just wondering when we can expect a report on Cleash Primary School to come back to this committee.
I think we have that as mentored for our next committee. Is that right, Carol?
I think we were looking at May committee.
May committee, sorry, May.
Thank you.
I think in response to the questions you've asked, Councillor Purvis, this is why administration is very keen to get on with the work that needs to be done, because there's a significant amount of considerations around the various catchments, etc., in relation to this paper. Councillor McDade.
Thank you. And part of the Executive Director's answer to the previous question has answered essentially some of my question. My question was a follow-on from Councillor Anderson's question around the numbers of house building. My understanding is that in the LDP there are a number of sites zoned across the 3 North Perth developments, as it were, Perth Park, Amman Valley and Perth North West, allocated for schools, and obviously 700 pupils. That would be a very, very large primary school, even if we did keep extending it, so it's unlikely we are going to do that. So my question is around how many schools are we expecting to require to build in the next 10 years to accommodate the 700 pupils? Taking into account, obviously, what you've just said about, we'll obviously look to try and maximise, but for example, Ruthven Field's already, I think, 95% roughly, etc. So there is not probably an awful lot of availability in the neighbouring schools, maybe some further afield. But so really what I'm looking for is an answer around how many we're likely to be building.
I think I would just want to say again that there's got to be a two-pronged approach to this, because it's how do we maximise the best use of the current estate before we necessarily default to thinking that we need new and additional. So it's a very difficult question to be definitive about and give you an answer today, Councillor McDade, other than to say that it may be that the new school that we are proposing and any additional catchment work may still not be sufficient for the projected numbers. But as Councillor Purvis stated, all these young people will not be emerging at the same time, and so this will be an evolving and developing picture over time. And what we're saying is this is the area of pressing need that we would wish to proceed with at this moment, and that may look to change. So it may be that it would be another one, because we wouldn't be looking to build a school of a primary school that would accommodate, 700 plus young people.
No, I absolutely appreciate that, and obviously I'm a strong advocate for utilising as much of our current estate as possible. My question, I think, is more about, in terms of it, Councillor Shires did mention, obviously, these things take a lead-in time. There is a lead-in time for building a school. It's usually, I think, nearly 5 years, roughly. And therefore, whilst we're not expecting all 700 to appear overnight, if we're expecting 700 in 10 years, in a few years' time, we are going to be coming to a conclusion about building another school, whether it's single stream, double stream, whatever. So I think I was just really looking to get a clarity on that. Anyway, I think we've covered my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, Councillor McEwen and Councillor Forbes?
Thank you, Convener. It's evident from the questions that have been asked already and the answers received that this is going to be quite a complex juggling act in this area of Perth. And we already have primary schools here at Munkerty and Pitcairn and Ruthven Field. And that, it's evident already when you build a brand new school, we get a big flood of placement requests. You see it in Blairgowrie, where New Hill sits at over 80% capacity, and Rattray sits at just over 60% capacity as pupils move from an older school to a new school when it's easy to do so. Connectivity in this area is going to be very easy for people to have placement requests to the brand new school rather than their current school. That may threat, as Councillor Simpson hinted, that capacities at the older schools like Lunkerty, etc., could drop below this 60% measure that we then possibly could kickstart a review. What I'd like to ask, based around all that, is are we going to try and treat all these schools as a group and not trigger reviews of these other schools while all this is in transition and pupils are moving around and houses are getting built and more pupils are coming into the area? Because it seems like for quite a while this is going to be a pretty big moving target. And they need to make sure that we don't put these other schools under any type of review while this all settles down. Because even in the papers yesterday there was talk about more plans coming forward at the Broxton roundabout with houses and stuff. So this whole area of Perth is looking for lots of development, and it's just giving that reassurance to these current schools.
I think Councillor McEwen, principle of parental choice is current and will remain and should remain, and parents will choose to look to place their children at the school that they consider is most appropriate for their particular circumstances. That's not going to change, and that would not be our intention to do that. I think what I'm trying to say, but perhaps not articulating in a way that's terribly clear, is that we're seeking to look at the catchment schools in this wider area to understand what we can do that will be something that can be expedited relatively quickly and that may not necessarily be contingent on any new lots of different new builds. So hopefully that will give you some reassurance, and I'll just ask Carol to say a couple of things as well. I think she had.
I think that the new school, it would be the same as Perth Park High School, in that we'd be staffing up the new school to accommodate the catchment children, and therefore the placing requests wouldn't necessarily be coming from, or they may be coming from the other schools, but they wouldn't necessarily be successful because the school was being staffed up for catchment pupils only.
Is that all for you? Okay. Councillor Forbes.
Thanks, Convener. Just for the benefit of those of us who weren't around back when Bertha Park was first mooted, was there ever any consideration given to an all-through school or building a primary school out there at that point in time?
Karen Robertson was very much involved in the consultation period. At that time I wasn't, Councillor Forbes, so it would be inappropriate. Did Karen, you not do some of the sessions with Audrey May? If you didn't, just say you didn't, and I'll take the question.
No, the consultation at that point, the decisions had already been taken within the council. It would be a secondary school, so we were not out discussing with parents in the wider community that proposal.
That was my understanding at the time as well, that it was only ever discussed a secondary. So, any further questions? No. Any further questions from the committee? No. Okay, I'll move on to move the report. In moving this report, I think it's important that we all get clarification in our minds that there's a number of separate asks, as it were, within the paper. So what we're doing is we're agreeing to build a new primary school to meet the requirements from the strategic sites to the northwest of Perth, including Bertha Park and Almond Valley. Secondly, that we're approving Bertha Park as the preferred location for a new primary school. And for Councillor Redbick, and my clarification, the site is the area when you're in the visitors car park. It's just beyond the kind of mugger pitch to the far side. John and I had a discussion about where exactly that site was. We're agreeing to the options appraisals, including informal consultation on the catchment for this new school, and alongside that, the future of Ruthven Field Primary School. And we're agreeing that a report comes back to Lifelong Learning in November 2020 or as soon as possible thereafter. We really want to hear the views of those in the wider community, and oddly many of them may not live there yet. But we want to hear the views of all those in the wider community who have an interest in relation to the catchment areas. I visited Ruthven Field Primary School last week to see the school building and the site, and it's clear that there are very many challenges to develop on what is a very tight site. And if you haven't been there, I would recommend you go and have a look, because it really is bounded by roads, and they're pretty challenging roads as it is. The opportunity to build a primary school close to Bertha Park is a fantastic one for the new community which isn't actually there yet. But those houses at Bertha Park next to the high school are filling up pretty fast, and as Mr Marshall has indicated, the expectation is that that new community will develop very quickly. It's also an opportunity to bring potentially the traditions of the other primary schools that we have within that local area, as you were talking about, Councillor Anderson, in to form this identity of the new school, which will fill up as is required. So if this paper is approved today, I look forward to us getting on with the work, because we really do need to. There has been a delay. I absolutely appreciate it's a large sum of money that we're considering, but we really do need to get on and recognise as well that our officers are going to be doing this work alongside lots of other projects. So with those comments, I'm happy to move the report.
Thank you, Convener. I'd like to thank the Executive Director for bringing this comprehensive piece of work back to the committee within a relatively short timescale. The school estate is a major investment for any local authority, and therefore decisions surrounding the building and location require careful consideration. The options appraisal set out in this paper covers 4 different scenarios in terms of their impact on a number of different factors, and it's quite clear from the outcome that option 4, a new build school with 1 catchment area created to accommodate pupils from house building at the strategic sites, ranks the best for virtually every one of the 5 considered impact factors. As we've heard, given the significant levels of planned house building in the area, over 2,500 new homes in the next 10 years, bringing approximately 700 additional school children to the area, families will want to have access to a school within a reasonable walking distance of their homes. And I'm sure we all recognise the benefits of this in terms of the cost and climate emergency by reducing the need for school transport, the health of our children, and the time it takes both pupils and parents to travel to and from the school. To this extent, the report considers the vacant site adjacent to Bertha Park High School as the most viable location for the new primary school of the size likely to be required. And again, the benefits of co-location within the new high school are apparent. With the new high school, are apparent. If agreed by members, further consultation will be required on the implications of our decision, and discussions would take place, which would include the communities at Rutherford and also Pitcairn primary schools. Convener, the paper sets forth a compelling argument for its 4 recommendations, and I'm happy to second your motion.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Can I ask if there's any comments on the report? Councillor McDade.
Yeah, thank you, Convener. I have an amendment that I hope you might consider incorporating. I've got copies of the amendment, but I'll just give a brief overview. Basically, all it is an additional sentence asking to formalise stuff that you've already said in the room today around that the establishment of the new school is not predicated on the closure of any neighbouring rural schools, and that all options are open and considered as part of the catchment options appraisal, which is stuff that has already been said in the room, and we're just looking really for a written commitment as part of that. But it doesn't delay the work on the school being started. It doesn't change any of the other recommendations. They all stand. It's just an additional sentence.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder for your amendment?
I believe I do.
Thank you, Convener. Can I make a couple of comments just as I second this, if that's appropriate? And before I even make comments in second in the amendment, I would just like to echo your kind words about the opening at Bertha Park Secondary last week. It was a very uplifting and enjoyable experience, and it was slick, that's for sure. So just to echo thanks to the officers and the staff involved, and the young learners there were outstanding, both in terms of their artistic prowess, but their manners and courtesy which were showing in showing us around the school were impeccable. I might mischievously suggest that anybody that did attend it should only conclude that Scottish education is actually in a pretty damn good place. But in seconding the motion, we're happy to progress with the new Bertha Park Primary School. The community is not flourishing yet, but it is starting to develop, and I think we recognise that, and I believe the time is right to proceed with planning for the new school. And I think it's right as elected members that we keep our minds open to how that project is delivered, and we will do that. However, it's also fair and appropriate to just reiterate the SNP group's position on school closures, and that is that we will oppose them unless it's absolutely impossible to do so. But I would be delighted to agree with the report, subject to Sanders' amendment.
Can we have a brief recess just so I can consider the wording of that? Is that okay? Thank you. And we'll circulate the amendment. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, reconvene. Councillor Rebeck. Having had discussions about the wording, I'm just going to read this out, Xander, Councillor McDade and Councillor Rebeck, and check that you're happy with it. So item 4 would be changed to read, agrees that the establishment of a new primary school at Bertha Park, referred to at Para 1, should not necessarily be predicated on the closure of any neighbouring rural schools, and asks that options that keep these schools open are considered as part of the options appraisals. And then, and. You content with that?
Yes, thank you, Convener.
That's fine. We're happy to accept that.
Yes, happy to accept it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So with that, can we agree the report? Thank you. This takes us on to paper 7, the Tayside Regional Improvement Collaborative Progress Update. I'll let people leave the chamber and then invite Sheena Devlin to introduce the report.
Thank you, Convener. This report provides an annual update on the progress made in Year 2 by the Tayside Regional Improvement Collaborative in delivering the aims of the Joint Children's Services Plan. The summary report has been submitted to the Scottish Government as is required in statute and outlines key improvements made up until the point of July 2019. Phase 3 plans for the Regional Improvement Collaborative in the 2019-2020 academic session have also been referenced in this paper. With this plan is it now there should be an additional infographic that has been provided. Folks have got that. Where the focus is more from a Perth and Kinross Council perspective, which we hope you will find helpful. There are a range of officers here who'd be happy to take questions in relation to this paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheena. The infographic is on page 139 of your pack. It's very helpful, as these things always are. Can I ask if there's any questions from members on the report? No questions? Councillor Sarwar.
Hello. I have 2 questions. Thank you, Chair. One, just briefly, I'm always looking for anything that's looking at the numeracy levels, particularly of P4, because I know that's not an issue, but it's come up in my ward particularly. And so I was really interested to hear about the Numeracy Hub Champion grant. So that sounded interesting.
Sharon Johnston.
Thank you. That was part of the work stream in the Learning and Achievement section of this plan. And the rationale for that piece of work, as you rightly say, Councillor Sarwar, was about our dip in numeracy. A total of 12 schools across Tayside were targeted for this support, and 2 of the schools actually were within your constituency, which were Ayleth and Rattray. The work around that work stream was to look very specifically at the school's numeracy data, so it was very specific to each school. And they were supported through Dundee University and some action research to look at their gaps and then to determine what options might be available to them to intervene to improve their gaps. And the indications from both Ayleth and from Rattray primary schools, and indeed all of the schools who took part, were that the interventions that took place within the school did in fact increase the numeracy attainment data over time, and we have that information. I suppose I should put a note of caution about the potential to scale up those interventions, because the differences in the numeracy data was different to every school. So it wouldn't be to say that what happened in Ayleth or Rattray or in Errol would be able to be replicated in a different school and the same outcome achieved. But it does give us helpful lessons to share with other schools who might have similar data. And in fact, all of the schools within this work stream did in fact do that through a numeracy conference. Your question about the numeracy champions is part of our strategies for literacy and numeracy development within Perth Kinross. We've developed a structure around our literacy and numeracy strategies to build capacity within all schools, and that's about making sure that every school and LMG has access to a literacy and a numeracy champion. And we're supporting that work from the centre and in conjunction with Education Scotland and the Tayside Regional Improvement Collaborative to basically build up some skills and resources and some support for schools to look at their gaps and to think about targeted interventions and also some universal supports that will increase our numeracy data over time. So we're in year 1 of that development, and we're thinking now about our planning for year 2 and getting some feedback from schools as to how helpful that's been to them.
Thank you for that.
Sorry, there was
a second question. Which I've now lost because I've scribbled everywhere. It was just at the end of the report, all of the findings with the graphs. I'm not going to look for it right now, but I thought so much of that was really positive and really encouraging. Obviously, some of it's early days, but I did notice that local residents satisfied with schools has gone down from 84 to 79%, and I just wondered whether that was something that we expected, whether that was a surprise. We're going to look into that further. Is it a significant drop? Is it just a marginal statistical kind of drop? I think it's page 33 of the appendix.
Yeah, page 131 of the full report.
Yeah. These figures were...
Sorry, I was just going to say that there's a couple of things that are important in relation to that, Councillor Sarwar. So this is from the residents' survey. And of course, some of those who are surveyed may or may not have young people currently at our schools. And what we do see is some fluctuation in relation to that. And so the data that we tend to focus on. Now, we report this because it's part of the local government benchmarking framework reporting. So that's why that's included in here as well. But the data that we are more closely interested in is the surveys that we do with parents of children in our schools. And what we know from those surveys, particularly those that are undertaken by Education Scotland at the point of school inspections, is that the levels of parental satisfaction with a significant number of aspects of school is high and almost above the national average in all of the areas.
Any further questions? Councillor McDade.
Thank you, Convener. My question is on 2.1 of the impact assessment. It's around financial resource implications. The total allocation for 2019-20 is 679,000, and in addition to that, there's also an underspend of 224,000 from 2018-19. My question is around how much does Perth Kinross contribute into this?
We don't contribute to that. That's money that's given to us from the Scottish Government.
Fantastic, thank you.
That's welcome.
Absolutely. Any money that the Scottish Government is prepared to give us is always welcome.
Any further questions? Councillor Purvis.
Can I just ask, it was on the same page, I think, that, no, it's not the same page, but it's relation to Appendix 2 that Councillor Starwell was referring to on page 130. The bottom indicator in Perth and Kinross, I'm wondering whether this is just to do with the figures that we're using. Our records of figures don't match with the total population figures that we've got, but just why have we got 104% and 102% of 3- and 4-year-olds accessing early learning and childcare? Because I can't quite get my head around how that would work, other than a statistic.
Well, I've already bypassed on a numerical some calculation to yourself, and I'll ask Sharon Johnson to answer this question as well, Councillor Purvis.
Yeah, there's a stretch. So this is also one of the LGBF figures and one of the things that we report on, and it's a very inexact science, as you can see, Councillor Purvis. So those figures, because there is no statutory requirement to take up the offer of early learning and childcare, and there's no, therefore, requirement to attend early learning and childcare. Those figures are based on the statistical summary, so it's the census data that they use. And so what happens is that they're measured against the census, but it doesn't take into account parents who will go into 2 placements for their nursery provision, so they're double counting. So that's why there's always that figure that's over 100%. If we've got lots of parents who take up nursery places in 2 or 3 different settings.
Any further questions? No. I'll move on to moving the report and thank the Executive Director for the update, and specifically the focus on how services for children, young people and families are benefiting from shared experience, learning and expertise between professionals across Tayside. The passionate commitment towards getting it right for every child and improving life chances, health and wellbeing, attainment and ensuring positive future destinations for young people as they leave education are all shared goals with our colleagues in Angus and Dundee, and we look forward to further reports. And if officers could just take back the infographics, and the particularly helpful if we're out in our wards and parent councils, etc., discussing with parents. So more, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. I welcome this update on the delivery of the Joint Children's Services Plan for the Tayside region and Perth Kinross in particular, and the notable and encouraging progress contained within the report in respect of the 5 areas of priority. Therefore, happy to second the paper.
And Vice Convener is taking the next paper. If we're agreeing this one, sorry. I was. And can I ask if there's any comments on the report before we agree it? Rebecca.
Thank you. I'll be very brief, but it is important to say that in all of the things, and I've said this before, in all of the things that we do in education and children's services, this stuff sometimes gets lost a little bit because there's no politics in it. It is as important as anything we do, and it's a plea to the press not to forget about this great work that we do here in Perth and Kinross, and a thanks and a commendation to everybody involved in it, because it is very positive and it is appreciated.
I'd agree with your comments, Councillor Rebick, and it also shows the advantage of collaboration, you know, where we can share expertise across boundaries that for many people are artificial, the local government boundaries. Nobody really sees them, but actually if we can benefit from talent in Angus and Dundee and Fife and elsewhere, and equally, you know, our officers can share their expertise with others, that has to be to the benefit of everybody. So, yep. Any further comments? No. With that, I'm content that we agree the report. Thank you. And I will now pass to the Vice Convener.
Thank you, Convener. We move on to item 8, school terms and holiday dates for 2020-21 and 22-23, and I'll ask the Executive Director to introduce the report.
Thank you, Vice Convener. This is the standard annual report seeking approval for the school terms and holiday dates. Members are asked to note that the proposed pattern of holiday dates generally reflects the existing pattern of dates that we have and in service days. This pattern of dates provides operational and logistical benefits and provides certainty for parents and staff regarding the timing of school holidays. There has been consultation that has come through the offices of the JNCT and with staff in schools in relation to the setting of these dates. It's worth noting that Good Friday and Easter Monday have been retained as school holidays in Perth and Kinross, and this report also acknowledges that it may be necessary to include additional closure dates where necessary throughout the school session, as we've had examples of, for example, when schools have moved into new premises, for example. Karen Robertson is the person who, along with myself, would be happy to answer any questions that maybe the committee have in relation to this paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No questions? Happy to move the report then. If there are no questions, I'll just move it formally. Do you have a second?
Happy to formally second.
Are there any comments? Councillor McDade.
Thank you, Vice Convener. I'll be very quick. I just want to thank officers who took on board my comments from last year about including our other neighbouring local authorities. I'm very pleased to see that is included, even if they haven't set their dates. I appreciate that it has been included, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any further comments? If not, can we agree the report? Agreed. Thank you. I'll hand you back to the convener.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Item 9 on the agenda is the Lifelong Learning Committee non-council members. And to ask the committee, can we agree to note that Ms Theresa Moran replaces Canon Tom Shields as the Roman Catholic Church representative on the committee? And in agreeing that, I think it'd be only right and proper to just say a few words about Canon Shields and to thank him for his commitment to the committee over the past few months. He's only been here for a couple of months since Mrs McFarlane stepped down as the Roman Catholic Church representative, but in that time Tom showed I'll go for Tom because he's not here to shout at me, showed a huge interest in the work of the committee, the detail of papers, and I'm sure he'll continue to be a regular visitor in the Catholic schools across Perth and Kinross. So we extend our thanks to Canon Shields, and we'll do that formally and indicate that we look forward to working with Miss Moran over the coming months and years in the way that we welcome our other non-council members on the committee. So with those comments, which I hope you'll agree to, thank you very much for your attendance this afternoon, and look at that, Adrian, 3 o'clock. Thank you very much.